Thank you very much for the comments and the questions. Marshall has insinuated that the delegation of President Ramaphosa to Ghana was rejected. I must put it that that is incorrect. I went to Accra, Ghana, as the special envoy of the president, and I was well received by President Mahama, with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ghana, Mr. Ablakwa, and his delegation, and we had a discussion. Firstly, the meeting reaffirmed South Africa-Ghana relations, that this matter on the table is not going to impact or affect South Africa-Ghana relations, because the relationship between Ghana and South Africa is enduring, has got a long history of solidarity and apartheid, but also beyond apartheid. South Africa and Ghana established long-standing, good, cordial relations that remains enduring to this date. And to date, there is also a number of South African companies invested in the Ghanaian economy. Some of them are leading companies in the Ghanaian stock exchange and in the markets. So the meeting was very robust, characterized by frankness on a number of issues that are emerging in our country. But that was the first point of agreement. The second point that was agreed upon is that South Africa, as a sovereign country, has a right to enforce its immigration laws, just like Ghana has the right to enforce its own immigration laws. But what they then raised as Ghana is the issue of the violence that accompany the current protests, or the protests as they erupt in South Africa in relations to immigration, not only this one, but the previous ones. This is an issue that they have raised, the enforcement of the laws by individuals, private groupings, and what they characterize as what they view as impunity, because since that period they believe that there has not been arrest of some of the perpetrators that impersonate Home Affairs officials, police officers, and so forth. And we did respond that the South African government has acted. There have been arrests of those who are impersonating police officers, and I'm glad that the chair of the IMC has outlined those numbers of the people that have been arrested for impersonating of police officers, and those that have been involved in looting, housebreaking, and so forth during this protest. There remain specific cases of Ghanaian nationals that have been killed, murdered, like the one that was murdered in Nyanga, on the matter that the police have said is an extortion case. It remains an active investigation by the South African police. So we were able to demonstrate that there is work that law enforcement is doing with regards to these cases. It's not a situation of impunity. There is action and there is work. And as I have said, on the issue of the enforcement of immigration laws, not only from Ghana, across the continent, there's an acknowledgement that every country, it's its sovereign right to enforce the immigration laws, which it must be done by any country within the boundaries of their own laws. And many countries that I have interacted with, the key issue they are raising is the violence, the enforcement by individuals, what they deem or see as impunity. So we are glad that there is credible information and evidence of action by the lawful authorities to deal with these matters. As Minister Kubai has also said, that we have also received a communique from the African Women and People's Rights Commissioner, which we are working with justice to, we have responded to, and they will be coming to South Africa soon on a visit to check. This is the initial first step where they will engage with various stakeholders to understand the matter. It is not yet what is at the second level of the structure called a fact-finding mission at this stage. It is still at an initial stages of gathering to understand what are the issues and so forth. And we have said they're invited to come to South Africa. South Africa is a constitutional democracy, open and transparent, and our stakeholders will engage with them what actions have government taken and what are the other stakeholders involved in our country, including human rights bodies, roles that they have played on this matter. So I think for now that will be what I can say from the response. The other issue is that we have to continue to engage at the level of what you have said. It has been raised as an issue for the African Union. The AU has got a protocol on the free movement of persons, rights of residents, and rights of establishment, often called the AU Free Movement Protocol, which is a landmark treaty adopted by the African Union in January 2018. It forms a core flagship project under the AU Agenda 2063, aimed at having a common and regulated approach on Africans' ability to travel, work, and live across the continent. It mandates states to modernize and coordinate border data and law enforcement and enhance anti-human trafficking system. SADC also has a similar protocol on the free movement of people, the facilitations of movements of persons. South Africa is one of the signatories. It has now been signed by about 7 countries in the SADC area. We still need about 9 to operationalize this protocol. So it means now we operate with one of the AU. But both protocols calls for regular and orderly migration, which is a point of emphasis, that migration must be orderly, must be regular, must also be legal to enable economic activities to function, to work, to enable also the Africa Free Trade Area, which is the flagship of the African Union on Agenda 2063 for regional integration, for the movement of people and persons. And it also deals with issues of anti-trafficking, illegality, and so forth. So the protocols of the AU and that of SADC don't call for disorderly, irregular, and illegal migration. So migration must be orderly, must be regular, and must be legal, which is what the South African government has to do to ensure that migration is within the parameters of the law, it's regular, it's orderly, and it is within what our laws prescribe. The only issue that all of them do raise, which is what I've already said, is that where there is a challenge of irregular and illegal, including undocumented immigrants, it must be dealt with in a human way. It must be dealt with by law enforcement, not private individuals and groups that are not mandated by the laws of that country. So that is what we have to continue to deal with and to respond to. And we will continue to engage across the continent with various countries to put this into perspective. And the debate that has been said by Ghana, as I've said, these protocols have been there. And the debate at the African Union has been on migration. South Africa is one of the highest receiving countries of migrants, both regular and irregular. And on irregular one, I believe we are the #1 country in the continent, followed by Egypt and Ivory Coast in West Africa. So it does mean that there are root causes, challenges in the continent that leads to the issue of irregular migration. Stats shows that about 45% of the continent lives outside their own countries. And 50% of that is within the African continent. So it does mean that South Africa then receives the highest share of that, and there are others that receives the other parts of the migrants in the continent. North Africa also, it's a bit fortunate because North Africa, it's another corridor of migration, but it plays a double role, unlike South Africa. South Africa's role is only one, to receive. North Africa plays a double role of receiving and also being a conduit to Europe. So hence there will be partnership with some of the North African countries with the European Union to respond to the issue of irregular migration and so forth, to avoid migrants going into Europe. In fact, some of the countries receive both technical and financial support from the European Union to deal with this issue of the double role that the North Africa plays. We don't have that privilege. We only deal with it from our fiscus, respond to it here, and those pressures are only dealt with by the South African government. So there is debate that is being called by Ghana. Should not be a debate of finger pointing, cheap political scoring against South Africa, labeling South Africa as this and that, because it will not be helpful. It should be a constructive engagement on migration, the root causes, the economic challenges that the continent faces, the challenges of lack of economic growth, unemployment, and so forth happening across the continent, issues of governance, peace, and security that leaves people to leave their own countries, including issues of climate change. So framing the debate in that context will lead to a positive and a constructive engagement. Because if it's just about South Africa, therefore it's about targeting South Africa as a country. It's not to deal and to respond to this challenge, because while we are the highest receiving in the continent, we are not the first country where there have been challenges for immigrants. We all know what happens sometimes in the Red Sea and so forth, in some parts of the continent, how immigrants are treated, illegal immigrants who are en route to Europe. We know what is happening with those. So that is a question that must be debated and must be engaged in this debate. So the debate must be comprehensive if it has to find a solution. Not just to say we want to debate South Africa, you are Afrophobia or you are xenophobic, and it ends there. It will not resolve the problem, because the problem is economical, it's peace and stability, issues of climate change. All those root causes lead to the current situation that we are responding to in the South African context. But not only in the South African context, all over the continent, North Africa, in West Africa, and everyone is dealing with this matter the same way. So the same way you want to deal with South Africa, it must be dealt with all other countries. But already, as South Africa, we have said we are prepared to engage with the fact-finding mission of the African Union. We are prepared with all those processes. So this debate at this stage, to take it at that level, and we have said that we will welcome it if it does happen. We can take that debate to deal with it in a comprehensive way. But we think that at this stage, it may still be a bit premature, particularly when reports have to be processed, where we have to engage with the Commission to respond and all that. But we will handle the matter and deal with it in those platforms of the African Union. The midterm Executive Council meeting of the African Union is starting on Tuesday. And we will further engage on this matter. But in a nutshell, we are saying as South Africa, we welcome any discussion that will be comprehensive on migration to deal with all issues, including the root causes of illegal migration. Thank you very much.